Hello, Black Women Amplified family. It is your girl, Monica Wisdom, and I am excited that you're here with us today. This is the official YouTube page, and this is where we're going to go outside of the podcast and have other conversations. So if you haven't listened to the podcast, please go to blackwomenamplified.com and it'll take you to our website. You can also search Black Women Amplified on Spotify. It's right here on this YouTube page, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find us. And we have some great interviews and great conversations. If this is your first time, let me fix this camera a little bit. If this is your first time, and I am Monica Wisdom. I am the host, and I'm the creator of Black Women Amplified. And we have merchandise on the website. We have the podcasts, and we also have a brand new newsletter called Smart and Ambitious. So you can find all those in the links on this page. And my camera is just not being my friend today. Okay, let's figure this out. Yes, Hunty, the technical difficulties are real. Well, you can see me, so we're good. How is everybody doing? How is everyone doing? I am doing great, and I'm so happy to be with you today. I'm streaming on both of my pages, I believe. I'm so new to this YouTube platform, like me coming on. I'm always on YouTube, but me, myself, and I on here. So I have two pages. One of them is Monica Wisdom Coaching, and the other one is Black Women Amplified. So the coaching side, we're going to talk more about entrepreneurship, business, telling your story, monetizing your knowledge, and all things starting a business, starting a podcast, all those good things that have to do with business. On this page, Black Women Amplified, we're going to continue the conversations of the podcast, behind the scenes of podcasting, behind the scenes of getting the interviews, behind the scenes of the conversations that I want to go a little bit further with. Because when you're interviewing somebody, you can't necessarily give your opinion or your insight, although I do speak a lot about different things. So that's what this channel is for. And also, if you have any comments, if you have listened to the podcast, you want to have commentary, you want to ask me a question, just put it in the comment section here, or you can go to the Black Women Amplified Instagram page and send me a message over there, and we can answer your questions right here on the YouTube page. So I wanted to come on here today to talk about a couple of things. One, I found I like to recommend podcasts to people because I think podcasts are just a great. There's a couple of spaces for Black people that are kind of where we can express ourselves. That's not policed by other entities so much. And one of them is YouTube, and another one is a podcast. So you're pretty much, especially if you have a podcast, an RSS feed. That's why I encourage people to start podcasts. And if you're ever interested in starting one, just let me know and we can book a consultation and I can walk you through the process. But it's important that we have spaces where we can express ourselves freely, that is truthful, that has integrity, that's honest. And, when you are dealing with places like the book or the talk, you are, or the gram, you are subject to their algorithms, right? And the difference with YouTube is a search engine. So people are on here searching for things, and then the way that it works is a bit differently. So YouTube will recommend your information and will push you out if people are interested in it, as opposed to the other platforms that are social media tools. But anyway, so I wanted to come on here and talk about a podcast that I like, that I just discovered, called We Sound Crazy. And We Sound Crazy are four men in the entertainment industry who are interviewing and having conversations with people in the industry. So I came across it because one of the shows that I watch, I don't watch that many television shows anymore, but one of the shows that I do watch is the Real Housewives of Potomac, and Candace was being interviewed by them. So I went and watched the interview, and then I found out, oh my God, I just liked the space. It was four men, and they were talking to a woman, and they were kind and friendly and very well researched. So they asked very poignant questions to her. So it was a great conversation. Some people, I'm just gonna say, a lot of these podcasts, they just get on here for clicks and views and to make money, and that's fine. And make your money however do what you need to do. But I like podcasts that have a bit of integrity, that you can learn something from, or truly entertained by. One of my favorite entertainment podcasts is T.S. Madison. They have me laughing out loud. It's so funny. It's smart. It's funny. It's outrageous all at the same time. So I like that podcast as well. But we'll talk about that one another time. But We Sound Crazy. I watched the interview with Candace. I can't think of her last name. And then I watched the interview with Candy Burris. And her interview was really, really well. And they just treated them so well. I love to see Black men treat Black women just really, really, really well. So it was just beautiful to watch and experience. Plus, it was very interesting and entertaining. So We Sound Crazy. So we get a chance to check out that podcast. You can find it here on YouTube, which is where I found it. And you can also, I think they have an audio version as well. So you can listen to it when you're running. It's just upbeat and fun, and they're very intelligent men. I love a smart man, honey. I love an intelligent man. And so if you go over there, just let them know that Black Women Amplify sent you. I don't know them. They're not my friends. But maybe one day, one of the guys is actually from the area where I'm from. So maybe one day we'll meet and we'll do a dual podcast. That would be amazing. And I saw they'll be in town performing, but it's way in the spring. I mean, in the late in the summer. Anyway, go and check that one out. It was really, really great. And then I watched, oh my God, the crux of this conversation, the conversation with Amanda Seales and Shannon Sharpe. I think that's his last name. I'm not a football fan, so I don't really know the players like that outside of, I can't remember the last time I watched a football game. So I don't know the players. I don't know the stats. I even had a cousin that was on New York Jets, and I never watched his games. But anyway, that conversation was really fascinating to me. I don't think that Shannon Sharpe was prepared for Amanda Seales. Amanda Seales is incredibly intelligent, incredibly outspoken, and she is clear about what she's talking about. And when she's not, she takes accountability for herself. So she takes personal responsibility. So I admire what she has done with her career and how she presents herself. And she came out as autistic on the spectrum. I don't know what her specifics are with her autism, but she came out and talked about that. And she said for her, it explained a lot of her to herself. Let her know why she was just how her brain works. Essentially, when you get a diagnosis like that, you understand how your brain works and why you do the things that you do, which is very important, I think. I think it's very important to know how your brain processes, how you think, how you are responding to things, and why. That's why I always think a journey of self-discovery is so important, because you need to know why you do what you do. If there's an issue that's beyond your understanding, it could be, a lot. One thing I've learned a lot about trauma over the last couple of years, and more than the last couple of years. I remember I was watching some military people talk about post-traumatic syndrome, and I was just fascinated. Post-traumatic syndrome, post-traumatic stress disorder. And so I went and researched it, and it just gave all of the symptoms and all the how what happens when you were going through when you're having and I don't want to say it when you're having a moment. I call it a moment. When you're having a moment and you're triggered, what happens to your body, what happens to the chemicals in your brain, what happens to the hormones in your body, and all of the things that happen within you when you are triggered. And so when I was listening to Amanda's interview with Shannon Sharpe, and she talked about that, I was like, oh, now it makes sense why she's so direct, and she's so, her brain just works differently. I appreciate her directness. I'm a very direct person, and it has taken me, we're in a different age group. I'm Generation X. So my perspective on things is like, I just let people live. But I can be very direct, and people have told me many times. And so, like, when I talked about this, it was like, oh my God, the way that she's speaking and the way that she's describing how people respond to her and the interactions that she's had with different people throughout her career and throughout her life, I was like, oh my God, she's like, I feel seen, because it's really, and I'm not going to say, whether I agree or I disagree, because it's her experience. I have no right to agree or disagree. I just have to listen, and I might have my perspective of it, but her experience is her experience. But I honestly, I watched it. It was 3+ hours long, so I didn't watch it at the same time. I didn't watch it all the way through. It took a couple of times, and so I don't know if I really saw the whole thing, but I think I saw maybe about an hour and a half of it. And it was really fascinating. I'm all over the place. This bright light is in my face, and it's making me look to places where it's not bright light. But it really made me think about, here's the thing. Black women, we are often misunderstood, especially when you are passionate about Black people and Black issues, right? We are often mistaken for angry. We are often mistaken for rageful. But oftentimes there are two things happening. We go into survival mode, and we go into survival mode, and we feel like we have to defend ourselves to protect ourselves. So the two things that she said is, throughout her life, when she was in situations, she didn't feel safe and she didn't feel protected. And it is a big thing for Black women to feel safe and protected. And we always talk about these safe spaces. And Amanda, oftentimes thought she was in a safe space because they were Black spaces. But she quickly found out they weren't safe for her. And the beauty, I think, of her is that she's very self-aware. So when people call her combative, or that she's, what do they call her? Difficult. It's this that she's not going for the okie doke. She's not getting along. She's not going along to get along. She's clear on what she thinks. She's clear about where her boundaries are. And that has been because she has worked on herself, right? She said she's been working on herself to understand herself, which is why she had the clinical diagnosis of autism, because she's trying to figure out why she does the things she does, because people keep coming at her. And I'm not defending Amanda Seales. She's a grown woman. She doesn't need defending, but she does need to know that there are people who understand her. And I get her. I mean, I didn't get her before as much. I did get her in a lot of ways, because I'm a great defender of Black women. I created a platform for Black women, about Black women, our perspectives, our stories, our trials, our triumphs. And so I'm a champion for Black women. And when you get in that area, You were often challenged. You were often unsupported. You were often questioned. And you were often viewed from a specific lens. And they often think that you're radical or over the top or too much because you're being passionate about Black women. I want to make sure that people get it right. It's like, no, that's not, and people will come at you with their assumptions of what you're saying. And if you try and get really clear about what you're saying, I'm being told that I'm being difficult or I'm being combative. I remember when there's a lot of protests going on right now. Around 10 years ago, 2014, I was involved in protests. And my friends were like, oh, you're so radical now. No. I told them I've always been like this. You probably didn't see it because you couldn't handle it. But I've always felt the way that I felt. I'm not any more vocal than I have ever been before. It's just that other people are now also saying the same thing. So my voice is louder because it's with a bunch of people's voices at the same time. But I even had friends who stopped being friends with me, or who distanced themselves from me. They would send a text every once in a while. I'm thinking about you. I hope you're doing fine. But didn't even want to talk about what was happening, what was going on. And it's so interesting because the juxtaposed of that is, it's so interesting because when in 2020, when George Floyd happened, then all of a sudden the same people who shunned me in 2014 called me and like, oh my God, I had no idea. And I'm like, I've been telling you this for 20 years. This is what's happening with Black people. This is our experience. But until you physically saw with your own eyes a man unalived, then did you actually believe it? And now you want to know, how can I help? And when I was asking for assistance before, it was like, I don't want to get involved with that. And I hear it often. And so when you're doing the work that Amanda Seals is doing, I understand it because you are navigating through so many different waters at the same time. And when you see what potentiality is for us as Black people, and you are focused on that vision, it gets hard. It gets really, really, really hard. I remember when I started this podcast, people would ask me all the time, well, why are you just focusing on Black women? I've been called racist. I've been called playing the race card. I've been called all types of names and had all, DMs and, messages and emails of people just blasting me out and people feeling like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then putting me over here in this box. Well, if you can't listen to the voices of Black women, then, but I've been listening to you all's voices my whole life. But because it's coming out of our complexion, then it's less valuable. So I say all that to say, the reason that I understand Amanda's passion is because I understand her passion. And when we are out here fighting the good fight, doing good trouble, like like our good congressman said, John Lewis, it gets challenging, especially when and here's the thing. I'm also talking about us and how we deal with us. There is a lack of empathy when we are dealing with us while we're fighting for us or while we're lifting us up. And when I started, for instance, when I started the idea of Black Women Amplified, it used to be called something else before. It was called the Black Female Factor. And I got a lot of pushback from the millennials about the word female, which is why I changed it to Black Women Amplified. But I still love the name, the Black Female Factor. I hope somebody Maybe one day I'll do something with it, but it was specific. It wasn't to exclude anybody. Even Black Women Amplified is not to exclude anybody. It's to give our perspective. Why? Because people don't want to hear our voices. And when people hear our voices, they call the same 6 people. This, if you see pay attention to the interview circuit, it is the same 6 people who show up for the interviews, as if there are no other poignant voices out there, that there are no other intellectuals out there, that there are no other leaders out there, that there are no other moguls out there. I would love, one of my favorite people is Melody Hobson, and she is a finance woman, and she's the wife of, and now mind you, let me say this clearly, before she married the person I'm about to mention, she was already a powerhouse. And she had already built her own multi-million-dollar company. She has a business partner who's a Black male, but his name escapes me. But she was already a badass, right? And then she married George Lucas. George Lucas is the man behind the Star Wars franchise that is now owned by Disney. So he's a billionaire, and he pursued her. She said she didn't even know that they were on a date, their first couple of dates. She just thought that he was going to ask for financial advice, because she's like one of the top financial companies in the country. And once they got married, here you have this dynamic woman, but even with her credentials and the fact that she's married to Star Wars dude, even you don't hear her voice. Many people will watch this and say, Melanie Hobson, who is that? I've never heard of her. She did a TED Talk. She even did a TED Talk called Color Brave, which was the opposite idea of color. I don't see color. So everybody goes into I see color, I don't see color. And so her perspective is be color brave. And she talked about, here she is, this multimillionaire with this business, and she goes into this prestigious place, and somebody thought she was the maid for the event. And several people asked her, can she hang up their coat? Can she do what? Can she hang up? Can she hang up your coat? She's one of the people. She was an invited guest just like you. And so I pause, because it's just thinking about it, just thinking back through my life of how people have told me I was too much, I'm too direct, I hurt people's feelings, I'm intimidating, all of these things. And I'm like, I am a Gen X Aries. I don't have time for fluff. I say what I mean. I mean when I say I don't hold grudges. I'm not disrespectful. I'm not going to cuss you out unless for me to cuss you out, you really have to take me to a different place. So when I watched Amanda's interview, I was like, oh, she is really my people. She is really my people. She really has a vision for Black people that we can't see, right? And oftentimes people like her, I heard somebody say this today, and it was so on point, that they said that people like her are visionaries, and she sees something that people don't see yet. And typically visionaries are fought against. And I'm saying this because people don't like change. People don't like to people like to stay in their comfort zones, and people only rise to their level of understanding. The people that go above their level of understanding are the ones who are curious, and they're visionaries. So they're seeking information, they're seeking knowledge, and they're seeking an understanding of life beyond what they're told. And they learn how to think, right? As opposed to regurgitate information. So when you are like that, in your prime time, you will get pushed back, right? And you will be told all types of things. Who are other people like that? Dr. Martin Luther King. Perfect example. When Dr. King was out there, he was not revered. He was shunned and ostracized and all types of things, even within the movement. People were like, well, who is this man? Who says he's the one? There were other people that had different ideas of liberation. Stokely Carmichael had a different idea. Malcolm X had a different idea. There were people that had different ideas for liberation for Black people. But Dr. King had his way, and there was a coalition of people that were in a similar mindset. And so now I'm not even gonna call it magical. They made things happen and they shifted things. So I look at Amanda and I say, wow. And somebody said what she is a visionary. And I said, oh my God, that's true. She's a modern day visionary. And the love and passion that she has for Black people is for Black people to live that dream that Dr. King talked about, live that vision that many great thinkers, that James Baldwin talks about. And the other thing is she's a student of Black people. She's a student of Blackness. She's a student of Black people, and she's a student of Black history. So when you put all of that together, and I think that she turns people off because they don't like the way that she says it. Who cares about the delivery? Like, y'all, we gotta get past that be dignified mentality, right? We have to get past that because we're overlooking so many brilliant people because they don't have the vernacular that you think is acceptable, because they don't have the look that you think is acceptable. Just listen. You don't have to accept people. You don't even know what you're disagreeing with because you're not listening, because they're not driving this type of car. They're not living in this neighborhood. This whole idea of dignity, we have to really move past, because the idea of dignity comes from proximity to whiteness. That is the parameters of dignification, is whiteness. And in order to figure out what is true for us, like I tell people, you got to decolonize your mind, right? You have to see the beauty in somebody who is from a different neighborhood than you. And that's why I like Melody Hobson's idea of color brave. When you actually look at the person and you see their complexion and you listen to their stories and understand where they come from and why they do what they do, you actually get inside of their minds and you find out who they are. And when you understand who they are, you understand why people make the decisions that they make. So when I look at Amanda, I was like, wow, she's really my people. I totally understand where she's coming from. In the beginning of the interview, I can see her people call her combative, but she was setting her boundaries because the questions that she was getting were not well thought out. They weren't well researched. They came out of personal opinion and not curiosity. And so it was very off-putting to me, honestly. The interview was actually very difficult to watch. And I wish that I wish that I wish she and I could sit down and have a conversation. Because I'm curious about how her mind works. I want to know that. I don't want to know if she's married. I don't care. I don't want to know if she's in a relationship. I don't care. I don't want to know if kids will be kids. I don't care. Mean is mean. Racism is racism. Disrespect is disrespect. And I don't care if they're 2 years old or they're 200 years old. And like I said, I just understand her, and I understand her a lot better after this interview, even though it was a very difficult interview to watch, because she was put in a position where she had to defend herself. And she was put in a position where she was not being heard and where she was not being acknowledged. And I can honestly say, and then I went and looked across social media to see what other people were saying. and everybody had commentary, which I respect. But we also have to have compassion and we have to have empathy with people so that we understand that there are times every Black woman has been through that where you are when you say, I remember one time I was at a girlfriend's party and this was the last time I went to her house, and not because of her but because of the crowd she hung around. And it's interesting because she and I come from two very different polar opposite worlds. She came from, well, I'm not going to say where she came. We're just polar opposite, and she's white. And so she built herself up to being very wealthy. And I was at her house, and it was so funny because everybody kept asking, and I'm the only Black person at this party. And everybody kept asking me, well, how do you know her? And if you knew our backstory, the question would have been, how does she know you? And finally I told her, I said, I'm not coming back to your house. Don't even ask me to come over because it gets so ridiculous. Because everybody, well, how do you know her? Like, how could I possibly be in her world? I'm like, if y'all, it's one of those things where you realize if you really knew this person and if you really knew me, you would be asking, how did she get in your world? And so, oh, there's so many funny stories at that party. So many funny stories at that party. Just when them people ask these questions and they just cannot figure it out. I told her I was going to start. I said, I'm going to make it a whole lot easier for them. I'm just going to tell them I'm the nanny, that I watch the children. And they would probably accept that. And they'd probably give me a donation or something. They'd probably do a little cash app. I would be like, and she just lets me come to these parties because she really, really does like me around. And sometimes she need me. If I talk like that, I would have been more accepted than the way that I speak now and share the experiences that I have. Let me tell you another story about, I'm talking too much, but I was at the same party and I saw this court. Everybody, like I said, everybody there was white. I was the only Black person there. And I went up to this girl and tapped her on the shoulder. I said, "Oh my God, hi, how are you?" I said, "I remember you, but I don't know where I know you from." And she looked at me and she tossed her hair and she said, "Oh no, there's no way I can know you. There's no way you can know me." I said, "No, I know you from somewhere." She said, "Oh no, that is not possible." Then she tossed her hair again and she walked away. And I looked at her because I don't remember people's names, but I can remember my memory goes to where was I when I saw you. And I just remember her being in close proximity to me, but I don't know why. And at the time I was a hairstylist and I was like, no, she's never been a client. Cause when I was doing hair, I did everybody's hair. It's like, no, she wasn't a client. And I started thinking, was she somebody else's client? Or did I see her at a fundraiser? Or did I see her in an event? Like, how did I know her? Then it came to me. I was sitting on the couch and she was sitting on the floor next to me. Now, this is the hoot and the ha. We were at my client and friend's bridal shower. And my client was her boss. And I was like, "Oh my God, what in the poetic justice is happening here?" So I went up and I tapped her on her shoulder, tap, tap, tap. I said, "Oh, I remember where I know you from." And she looked at me with that face. I said, "Yes. Don't you work at such and such?" And I gave the name of the law firm that she worked at. And I said, were you at so and so's bridal shower at so and so's house?" She's like, "Yes." I said, "Oh, your boss is one of my best friends." And then I tossed my hair and I walked away, right? I tossed my hair and I walked away. I should tell this story on the podcast because it is so funny. I tossed my hair and I walked away. And I mean, she was like, it almost felt like it was in slow motion because she literally reached out for me to touch me. And by then I had sashayed away and she couldn't reach me, but I could feel the air of her hand going across my back. And I was like, girl, no, ma'am. I said, oh, and I can't wait before she left. I said, I can't wait to tell her that I saw you. And I'll make sure that I tell her everything. And then I tossed my hair. I had short hair. I just tossed it. I tossed the air and I turned around and I could just see her as I'm turning and it was just like slow motion. Wait. So anyway, so we get in when we are you know how it is, black women. Y'all know how it is. So I hear people giving all these criticisms and this and that and the other, but y'all know what it is and y'all know how it is. These folks, whether they're this color or this color, have lots, don't look at my hands. I need to do my nails. Have lots of biases. They have lots of internal biases against different types of people. If you're not in the same clique, if you're not in the same fraternity, same sorority, if you're not didn't go to the same college, if you don't make the same amount of money, you don't have the same job, you don't have the same neighborhood, you don't da, 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 da. But like I tell everybody, we all got off that same boat. I don't care how many dollar signs are in your bank account. We all came off that boat, or or we were already here and we were ostracized. I always go back to that. So I work really really hard. I have worked really really hard in my life not to see differences in people. My camera's gonna fall again. Excuse me while I fix this camera. Hear my creaky desk. So I work really really hard to understand people, to understand people's perspective, and to listen to people. You know, all these years, Amanda Seals was autistic, and she was labeled what are uh, the symptoms is not the right word, but I'll say symptoms because I can't think of another word. But the symptoms of being autistic, or the my words are escaping me. I think I need to drink more water. But the whatever her wherever she is on the spectrum, this is what is displayed in her: being very direct, being hyper focused, um, which comes across to some people as combative. But I just think she's clear about the place she is in life right now. She's clear about setting her standards, and she's clear about setting her boundaries. So I wanted to give you all, before I hop off of here, I know I've been rambling on for a while, but I wanted to give you 5 ways when we are in those situations, we have to be prepared. Like I say, you have to be prepared. When you leave the house, you have to be prepared for battle, right? And so when people prepare for battle, they have their tools and their weapons with them. And when we are out here in these streets, we have to be prepared to take care of ourselves as Black women. Because at the end of the day, no matter what Disney says, nobody's here to save us. Nobody's going to put themselves on the line for us the way that we put ourselves on the line for ourselves. And as you listen to, and I'm not going to go into the details of the interview, you can go over there and listen to it. I will, no, I won't. I'm not going to do that. You can look up Club Shay Shay and you can listen to the interview for yourself. But when you're listening, I ask that you listen with an empathetic ear, that you look to see yourself in her conversation, because that is the only way that we're going to get a better understanding of ourselves, because the people that we see are our reflections. And you might say, I would never. You don't know until you get in that situation. You really, really don't. If I did this, if I was, I would, you don't know because you're not in that situation. I understand Amanda because I've been in those situations and I recognize some of the things that she's been through. I don't know everything, but I listened. And the more that I listened, the more I understood her. I was like, oh, I see. She's very passionate about Black people doing well, all Black people. She's passionate about her beliefs. She's passionate about the struggle that other people are in, and she's compassionate. So she's so deeply compassionate for people that it just hurts when she sees people being hurt. So oftentimes when people seem gruff or um, combative, as they say about her, or difficult, is that they go into protective mode because they don't feel safe. And we'll talk about being safe. Maybe I'll come on tomorrow and talk about being safe. But I wanted to give you all some tools that I have learned, so that I'm prepared when I go into these spaces, because like I said, I want to protect my peace at all times, at all costs. I will remove myself from a situation. And there were times where I would be in there like, listen to me, hear me. That's not what I mean. This is what I'm saying. I'm just at a stage in my life where if you don't get it, I pray that you do. I pray that you do when it comes to personally. But, when it comes to this Black Women Amplified, or it comes to my coaching, that's when I'll get into the minutia of things. But in my personal life, the things that I teach, the things of my level of understanding, is because I've experienced it, I've studied it, and I've made conscious efforts to remove things out of my own personal responses to things. I can't change anybody, and I can't fight for you to understand me. If you want to understand me, then you need to take the time, and we need to make the time for that to happen. Or you need to spend enough time with, and you need to pay attention, right? So anyway, before I get into a whole nother conversation, listen, let me tell you about Black folks. So I have a girlfriend. Oh, I need to call her. She's my Italian girlfriend, so she's white. She went to Italy and she brought me back this statue. Look at this. This is one of the guy, I forgot the name, but it's from Tuscany and it's from a history and art store. And the name of it is Simoncini. I don't know. And this is a Black goddess, and this iron, it's a iron. This is iron. It's not steel. It's made out of iron. And it's a powerful symbol in Italy. And she's a Black woman. Isn't that beautiful? So anyway, 5 tools. 1, be kind to yourself when you're in these spaces. Like, don't feel like you have to defend yourself. If somebody's coming at you, just do the whole matrix thing. Just pull on back. Just pull on back and say, bless your heart. You'll be all right. Cause you good? Cause I'm good. So be kind to yourself in those situations. Don't go into, oh my God, I should say this, or oh my God, this, or I need to say that, or and just don't even put yourself in that level of, don't rile yourself up because people don't understand you. If people are woefully ignorant of what you're saying, um, or people have a different perspective or different opinion, let them. Just let them. Second thing is breathe. Take some deep breaths, because oftentimes when we get in those spaces, we don't breathe. We get tense, we get tight, and our voices get tight and our shoulders get tight, and we put ourselves in a fighting position. Just open it up. Just take some deep breaths and just breathe. The second thing is have an affirmation in your head. Affirmations are disruptor. And one thing that I like to say to myself, a couple of things, but one thing I say to myself if I'm in those situations is I will put my hand on my chest and I will say to myself, I am safe. I am safe. And I just say it over and over again because it'll start to disrupt those thoughts. If you feel like you're being disrespected, or if you feel like somebody's coming at you, or you somebody puts you on the defense, you just roll back, you put your hand on your heart or somewhere, put your hands together, rub your fingers together. That's another disruptor, but rub your fingers together and say to yourself, I am safe, I am safe, I am safe. And that will disrupt whatever's coming at you. It won't stop the person, but it'll calm you down, because often when we feel somebody's coming at us, we'll match their energy. But and trust me, I'm just speaking from experience because I used to be the pop off queen. I talk about this on the podcast, the Black Women Amplified podcast. Um, find ways to disrupt those gremlin thoughts, I call them, gremlins in your head. And the other thing is, be clear about your boundaries. Oftentimes when I was in situations that I felt disrespected, I felt unloved, I felt unworthy, was because I didn't take the time to get to know myself. If you like what's being said, please subscribe to the channel. We're going to have more chats like this, more conversations like this. If you're in need of going deeper in these conversations, you can always book a consultation with me. There are links on this page. It'll be under coaching. And you just go to my website and you'll see where to book a coaching appointment. But anyway, get to know yourself really, really well so that you know your boundaries, so that you know what your yes is and what your no is. Because I just recall times in my life I was not clear about my yes and I was not clear about my no. And once I got clear about my boundaries, a lot of things are alleviated. You're not even putting yourself in situations where it could happen. You don't have to be in the hottest spot anymore. You don't have to be around all the people anymore. You can go where you find peace. You know what my saying is, and what I say to everybody, go where you are loved. Period. Period. And number 5, be an advocate for yourself. If you feel disrespected and you have to say something, you just tell them, hey, this is not working for me. And what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to be combative with you. What I'm going to do is we can either have a conversation about this, woman to woman, woman to man, whatever, excuse me, or we can just not have the conversation. So that's what I mean about being an advocate for yourself. If you are not clear about your yes and you're not clear about your no from a place of power, not a place of fear, then it's time for you to do a journey of self-discovery, right? It's time for you to take yourself on a journey of self-discovery. And just like all the other things that you have to know yourself just as well. So when somebody says, hey, you want to go? You say, no, not for me. And people will tell you peer pressure. Girl, you need to experience life. I'll do it on my own time. I'm okay with that. I don't have to do anything on anybody else's time. I'm clear. I can do what I want to do on my timeline. And so advocate for yourself when you're in situations, meaning if you don't feel comfortable, leave. If a person is trying to peer pressure you into something, tell them no from a place of power, not fear. Sometimes, and what do I mean by a place of power? And I'll go into this another time deeper, but a place of power is you're clear that this is not what I'm going to do. A place of fear is, when somebody asks you something, you're like, oh, I could never do that. That's a place of fear. A place of power is, oh, I don't want to do that. And I'm not going to. And you're okay with it. There's no about it. There's no, sense of, there's no wave that comes over you that's just shakes you up. It doesn't shake you. So place of power, you're solid on your foundation of it. And a place of fear, you're shooketh. It's like somebody says, "Oh, let's go play with the lions." If you're like, "Nope, not gonna play with the lions," because you don't want to play with the lions, or are you, "Oh my God, I can't play with lions. I'm scared of lions. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." That's a place of fear when you go into the, "Oh my God, da, 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 da." You go into the anxiety and the intrepidation. That's fear. A place of power is you are solid in your no, you're solid in your yes, and you move on with life without even thinking about it. So those are the 5 things. Be kind to yourself, breathe, have an affirmation ready. So if you get in a situation where you don't feel comfortable, affirmation could be, "I am loved, I am honored, I am free, I love myself, I honor myself, um, I am safe, I am powerful, I am kind." All of those things, you say them in your head in situations you don't feel comfortable in, and then set your boundaries. If you don't know what your boundaries are, do a journey of self-discovery. If you see a link, there's a link that will take you to my Amazon store. And I actually wrote a journal called Self-Love, and you can purchase it from Amazon. It's like $17, but it's a guided, it's a prompt journal, and it takes you through a series of questions that you might not necessarily sit down and ask yourself. So, and it also has a beautiful coloring book. So order, child, while you're over on the Amazon, order some crayons or some colored pens or whatever, so that you can, because it's a form of therapy. Coloring is a form of therapy, and they're beautiful pictures. So set boundaries and be an advocate for yourself. Let me say it one more time. Number 1, be kind to yourself. Number 2, I'm reading off a piece of paper because I got to take notes. Gen X brain. Number 1, be kind to yourself. Number 2, breathe. Number 3, have an affirmation available so that if you feel uncomfortable, you can say it to yourself. Number 4, set boundaries. And if you don't have boundaries, like I said, go on a self-discovery journey. Order the journal, go through that, and let that be your beginning, your middle. And then number 5, be an advocate for yourself. Because once you set your boundaries, you have to be able to fully say to somebody, no, or fully say to somebody, yes. So that's the end of our conversation today. I can't believe I've talked for almost an hour. But I just want you to know that you are powerful beings. You are beautiful. You are kind. You are generous. You are stunning. You're intelligent. And you're amazing. And always remember that. And if you forget, just come back over to this page and listen to these interviews of these incredible women. Listen to the conversations. Listen to my co-host. And know that there's a place on this interweb where you can feel loved, accepted, and understood. Again, please go to the website, www.monaco. If you want to book a consultation, go to www.monacowisdomhq.com. If you want to do all things Black Women Amplified, go to www.blackwomenamplified.com. And you can get connected to the website. What else is over there? The blog is over there. And merchandise, t-shirts and things like that. So sending you all love and light, and I will talk to you soon. And please like this page, subscribe to the page. I will be over here a lot more. I'm moving a little bit more away from social media and going to hang out on YouTube a bit more. And also, please subscribe to the Black Women Amplified podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget, I am also here to help you. If you're like, I have some goals I need to meet. I have a business I want to start. I have some situations that I need a little bit of help to get through. I'm here to help you through my coaching services. And you can find that link on this page. Have an amazing night, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Take care. Bye.